Hey guys, welcome back to part 4 of working on the 4840. Well, I got my parts here in, and so had pistons and sleeves in that big box, had more in here. Right there are the rod bearings. This here is, I think, it's going to be the head gasket, oil pan gaskets, all kinds of good stuff. So let's go over here to the forklift. I've already got all the pistons and sleeves sitting up here in these boxes, and then right here's one of them. There we go, new sleeve, and the piston is inside. There we are. So what I'm going to do is I'll show putting one sleeve and piston in. I'm not going to show them all, they're all the same exact thing. But now we got to get that piston pushed out of that sleeve. That way we can take and connect the rod to it. That should just shove right, well, I thought. Down now there's one way or another. Pushed out the, I guess take and shove it out the bottom of the sleeve. Let me grab a plastic hammer. There we are. Act like me taking, set you right over there. Just take your plastic hammer, stick the handle down the sleeve, and then just use that to take and knock it. Take and knock it out of there. Rings should begin to pop out. There we go. Alrighty, that's got that. Okay, there's the piston. Well, I can tell you one thing, it's a whole lot better shape what the old ones are. Also, make sure you have a ring compressor to go and put these back in. Alrighty. I'm going to get my supplies and get set up here, and we'll get to work dropping this sleeve into the block. Before I show you here dropping that sleeve in, I did, let's see here, which one was it? Oh, it was that one. I took this cap off there for the main bearing just to take a look at it. I didn't video it. I just dropped the cap off, looked, then put the cap back on. And the main bearing looks good. So I'm not even gonna mess with those. I was actually talking to a neighbor, and he told me you should be able to just take and change up the main bearings without pulling the crank. Until I took that cap off and I saw that there is those bearings were actually notched on each side, whereas the rod bearings they had that little notch on one side. These are both. Because he said he's always been able to take and you drop that cap off, and then you should be able to just take and roll the top half of the bearing right out of there. Well, with it being notched on both the left and the right side, that's not going to roll out. The only way to get that top half, that main bearing out, pull the crank, and I ain't doing that. Thankfully, the bottom half of the main bearing looked good, so I put the lubriplate or white grease back onto it, put it back in, we're good to go. Okay, let's get ready to go here on this sleeve. Got the sleeve right here. I've already put all the sleeve seals into this thing. You can see the orange and blue right down there. And, one thing, I did it on the other 4840, I did it on this one here too. On those sleeve seals, you drop in that seals up here on the base of the sleeve, that way antifreeze can't leak into your engine oil. I go and I get the seals from John Deere. I do not use the Reliant ones. I had a guy tell me that, I think it was at least one, maybe two of these motors that he rebuilt. he used the Reliant seals, and sure enough, they started leaking. He put the OEM, went to John Deere, got the John Deere seals, problem solved. So, last thing I want to do, you sit right here, is put all this together and then start leaking antifreeze into the oil and have to take it all back apart again. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take and I got this jug of vegetable oil here. Going to take and put a little bit of this veggie oil down there around those gaskets, and then also around the base of the sleeve. Yeah, you probably can't see too well with my arm sticking right smack dab down in front of the camera. But you want to use veggie oil and not engine oil, because the engine oil can make the rubber expand, and you don't want that. Whereas the veggie oil don't do that. Okay, let's take a look down in there. That don't look too bad from what I can see anyway. Now we'll do the sleeve. Before I put the oil around the sleeve, with your with the O-ring kit you get from John Deere, there's the part number. You get those two seals that I just showed you down here in the motor. You get a third seal. It's kind of square shaped, it's flat, and that goes around the sleeve itself for better sealing down there in the block. And get him stretched on there if you can make him fit. Well, maybe it'll go. Need about 2 or 3 more hands. Getting closer. There. All right. Then you'll just take and slide that thing right up against that little lip right there. And that's why it's square. It's made to form. Just take and push him right up there tight like that. All righty, that's got that one. There we go. Now, get the good old veggie oil. Looks like fried chicken too. And we'll take and put a little oil here right around on this thing, just like that. And you know, with the veggie oil, it's not going to hurt anything. Alrighty. Well, now we got that thing all ready to pop in there. Let's get it set up and drop that in. And when you drop these sleeves in there, just drop them down until they hit into the seal. Okay, now we're against the, well, it's going to be the first seal, the orange one. And when you go shoving these down in there, you want to take and spin them like that. Okay, there it popped in. And now, once you get the first one popped in, it doesn't want to spin near so easy. May actually have to take and grab a plastic hammer, kind of tap it on down. Yeah, we're right there at the bottom of the block. In fact, I may need to get a little tube before that way I can smack right in the middle. Like I say, it's easy to spin the thing until you get it shoved through that first O-ring, then it does not want to turn. All right, I'm gonna get a little chunk of 2x4, lay across here, then smack with the plastic hammer. Well, I found a 2x6 instead. There we go. That's I thought sure I had that. I had to wipe that thing all down. A little bit of dustiness on it. There we are. Now we're falling into place. I'm going to set these the same way they were before, and which was there was no lip right there to hook your fingernail on. It was literally perfectly flat. You slide your fingernail right across there, no hook. A little bit more. In fact, it may actually be bottomed out. Of course, I'd say a lot can also vary between, slight variance between sleeves. Yeah, like I say, the other ones, they were perfectly flat. There was no hook right there. Whereas this one, a little dab of hook on that edge. Well, let's get the old trusty 2x4 here back out and see what happens. Well, I think that's all we're getting out of it, which is kind of surprising. Well, that's all we got. And it ain't going anymore. Like I said, I think this slip right here is actually down against this ring, which it is as it is. I mean, that's what you want. I put my hand down there. I can feel it sticking out the bottom, so we're down below the O-rings, which is what you want. All right, let's get the first sleeve in. Looks good down there. So now I'm going to get the piston, the old piston and rod. We'll get that taken off, get that swapped out. All righty, here is piston number 1. And these rods are stamped. Not too sure how well you can see that right there. You can kind of see a little bit of a right there. You got number 1. That's what we want. So let me try and set you up. Well, maybe you'll stay right there. May tip off. Wait and see. So, let's see here. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and take out this snap ring. Here on the wrist pin. Come on. Get that plier to pop in there. I usually take and put my thumb kind of right in the middle like that. That way, in case the snap ring tries to fly, it can't come up and smack you right in the face or catch you in the eye. You don't want that either. I just get those little prongs to hook in place. We'll be good to go. Feels like I need to actually take and tighten up my snap ring pliers. They feel a little, they're loose in the joint. Come on, I just had it. Okay, now we pinch down. There we go. And you see how it flipped off like that? That's why I take and put my thumb in the middle, that way they can't go flying. Come right up and catch you right in the eye. And that wrist pin should, there we go, pop right out of there just like that. Now, if you need a good spacer, that wrist pin will make for a perfect spacer. Okay, and another thing, along with your Reliant kit, if you need them, they send the new wrist pin bushing. However, these here are good and tight. There's absolutely no slop or play in them at all. So, we'll leave them as is. I got the rod sitting there. Oh, another thing here I'll show you. It's stamped in the casting. Not too sure how we can see it on camera. Right there it says front. And so here on top of the new piston, it says front with a little arrow pointing forward. So you gotta make sure you get that all put on there correctly. And so I've actually got laying right here just like this. Right there's the tractor. And so as I'm putting it together, that way is front on the tractor. Now you're sitting there on the camera looking just the opposite, but no big deal on that. So, new piston. Let's grab our pliers, take and tighten up that joint a little bit on the pliers. And there's the new snap ring. Get my hook in there. Put my thumb in. There we go. Lay all that kind of good stuff back there. Pop the new wrist pin out. And let's see, you're taking, okay, there's the arrow pointing that way. Lay him over on the side. Set the new wrist pin back there on the board. And yes, I have taken, swept, and cleaned this pallet all off. It's just stained. Now, I am going to take and put a little bit of white grease inside this. It's got a little bit of oil left in there already. But I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit extra in there. Can't hurt nothing. Yeah, there's what I use. Works great too. Number 105. And we'll just take and add a little bit extra in there. Of course, it's got that oil hole right up on top of the thing, for the oil to kind of splash up in there, and it gets him all juiced up on top. Add a little bit more here to the other side of this thing, and we will be good to go. There we are. In fact, I was talking to the guy at the machine shop who was actually doing all the machining on the head. He's also the one that gets me this stuff here from Reliant as well. And he said one reason why generally on John Deere motors you don't have to replace these is because they're a heavy, thick bushing. And as long as you have no play in them, you're good to go. Okay, there we are front. And I know the piston has the arrow. Yep, it's pointing toward the front, so we're going to take and drop that right up in there. And take our new wrist pin. You can't turn there. In fact, I just now felt the thing. I've got the camera sitting there on that pallet. Come on. I got the camera sitting there on that pallet, and it's actually got a nail that the magnet is gripping to, so that can help stabilize the camera. Okay. Yeah, that dumb thing. It's so tight, it's hard to get him to... There we go. once you get it started, it'll fall right in, but it's such tight tolerance, you ain't got much room. Okay, then you just take and get that thing worked through there into that rod. There we go. Now we're coming through out the other side, and right there it is. Okay, we're front here. We are front up here on the piston, and there you got it. New piston, new wrist pin, and we are good to go. Now I'm going to take and put the new snap ring here in, just like that. Put my thumb through before I begin to pinch it. Okay, now it did not drop into the groove down here on the, there we go. We clipped in. All right, we're all the way in. That's got that. Now, get this moved on around over here, that way you can see. This kit also comes with new cap bolts, and so we can take and toss them away. And of course, naturally, it comes with new head bolts as well. All right, there's that one. And there we are, connecting rod cap screw. Oh, kind of strange. They're individually wrapped. You'd think they'd actually be wrapped in a pair, a set of two. You got to have a set of two to be able to put the thing in. All right, I'm going to go get a set of bearings. And here are the new bearings. I'm still not exactly sure why they call it a bearing. It looks like a bushing to me. Yeah, there we are, nice and shiny. All right, there we go. Now we'll take the cap here off, roll out the old bearing. There we go, get that thing to push down out of there. There we are. In fact, I thought maybe I might see something. Now these new ones do not have a date on them. However, these old ones, right there, the guy at the machine shop was showing me 1277. So December of 1977. In fact, this here's the bottom. Yeah, there we go, you can see. For being in there since 1977, it actually don't look too bad. Right there's the other part. Not too bad at all. I had a neighbor of mine stop by. He's also a diesel mechanic. And he looked at him and said, "Oh yeah, you're good to go." But we're going to put new bearings in anyway. Okay, so go ahead and take and roll the top one here in. And of course you got this little tab piece right there, and that goes in that little seat. There's a little groove right there that thing is going to roll down into. Just take and spin him in like that. Come on, get in there. All right, now the grooves are matched up, and just want that good and flat on each end. And there we go, there's half of it. And right here is the other half. Sometimes you can take and get them to drop straight down. Yeah, not too well. You gotta take and roll them. That way it goes the form of it basically. Okay, and there we are. Get in there. All right, same thing. The little tab is lined up, and we are good to go. These here are directional. They can only go one way because they're notched And so right there is how it's going to go around the crank. All right, now I am ready to take and drop this piston into the new sleeve. So I'll get set up here and bring you along. Okay, before I drop this in, same thing. Take your white grease and coat that bearing. That way when it drops on that crankshaft, it's not in there all dry. And I will do the same thing to the cap once I'm actually ready to take and put the cap on. And I'll paint it on there good. Yeah, there we go. You can use oil. Thing is, oil will have a tendency to run out. This stuff here stays. All right, now we're ready to start dropping in. Alrighty, I'm all set up here. Got my ring compressor, got the piston, and let's take an. I just took and I turned the crankshaft so that the crank is basically straight down below, and so that way I can take and just shove the piston right down in there, and then you got to get this here to match up on the crank. So I'll get you set up here, and we'll be ready to drop. Like I say, you get the little arrow up here pointing toward the fan blade. That's so. Pick him up, drop it down in there just like that. Try and get there. You go. Get a little bit closer that way you can see. Now, you got your oil wiper ring here on the bottom, and you want to set these rings so that. Let me show you here. You don't want all your ends right on top of each other. So we're going to put the oil wiper ring like that. We're going to put the second ring up facing forward. Okay, now there the end of that one is now facing forward. Going to take this one right here and face him to the left. And there we got it. We're good to go. Okay, and drop down there like that. All right, now we are ready. Make sure that we have our ends lining up, ready for the ring compressor. Okay, I was going to say, I thought sure I had that thing expanded big enough. I don't know if all compressors are the same or not. This here just has this little Allen wrench you poke in that thing and it begins to just crimp it down. Like that. Alrighty. Now we're pinching. Okay, now, thing I do, just take your plastic hammer. Let me pick you up that you can see better. Just start tapping it down in there. All right, and I think, not quite. There we go. Well, I couldn't do that again if I tried. Drop the hammer down the hole. I think we are ready to take off here. There we go. Okay, that's got piston number 1 in. Now I want to take a look up from the bottom. We'll see what things look like down there. Okay, now you can see the whitish of the grease, and now I want to actually take and turn the crank so that well, no, I don't want to turn the crank. I actually want to take and bring that down to the crank. But at least gives me a rough idea of what we're looking like down there. Uh-oh. Better get that thing out of the way, otherwise liable to get some oil dripping on the thing. Yeah, I want to take and dry this thing down to the crank That way it's at the bottom so you can put the cap on. Okay, I kind of hear some rattling, and I think that's beginning to match up. Let's go take a look again. Got to keep moving the ladder and dragging my creeper in and out of here. Okay, well, we're dropping down. We're getting close to the crank. We're beginning to fall inside the groove. So we'll do a little more hammering, and that should have it. If you want to, you can use a wooden handle on a regular sledgehammer. I prefer using this plastic one because I know the plastic is not going to hurt anything. Okay, now we're getting down toward the bottom. The last thing I want to do is take and shove that thing too far in case it should happen to miss. Okay, there we are. We're getting wrapped around the crank. There's the bottom part and there's the top part. I'll take and smack it a little bit more and that'll have it. Then we will be ready for the rod cap. All right, and there it stopped. That's got it. Piston number 1 is in. Now we'll get the rod cap and put it on. All right, I got you hanging here on the bottom of the frame. So the same thing here at the cap. You can see that. I put the grease on the bearing. And now I just gotta, let's see here, that goes up in there. Gotta get him turned around going the right way. In fact, I've actually got the camera sitting right smack dab in my way. There we go. And I also took and put oil on the bolts. I put some on the threads and then also on the, I can't hardly see, on the shoulders. That way, when I go to take and torque it, just like what I've done before, you're not going down and having dry metal on dry metal. You want that oil between the shoulders and the rod cap. That way you get your full torque. And I will say these bolts are kind of odd. In the paperwork I got, it says to take and torque them down so far, and then give them like a quarter or a half a turn, and you're good to go. So, kind of a strange way to do it. Okay, well hey, there's rod cap number 1 on. Now, I am going to take and get the plastic hammer and tap on that. Make sure we're seated good. And go ahead and spin those bolts on down with my fingers. And it's just that much less hassle with the torque wrench. Okay, well, I'll get my torque wrench here and we'll get them torqued down, and that'll be piston number 1 done. All right, before I can do any torquing on those cap bolts, there's a piece of paper here. It's hard to read it, but it's talking about the cap screws or your rod caps bolts. These guys right here. This here's piston 2. And to use the Reliant bolt, you got to find your rod forging number. And there's a number stamped right here in the rod, R-57303. I guess you can't see that on camera. Now, we got to see if we can find that over here on this one. 57303. Right there it is. Yep, 57303. Okay. You start out at 20 pounds, then 55. And then step 3 is a quarter turn. So I'll show you how to do all that. All right, now that I am up underneath here, I'm ready to get my torque wrench and start torquing. It says to start with the blind hole first. And so I'm assuming it's going to be the top one up here, because that's harder to see, just the way it's angled in there. So we start out at 20 foot-pounds, then move to 55, and then give it a quarter turn. Now, my torque wrench, right here, starts out at 25 foot-pounds. And so I'll go to 25, then we'll move to 55. So let me get you hung up here. All right, I think you can see halfway decent, so we're going to go right up here on this top one. Come on, get on there. You got to get him tightened down. Like I say, this here will go to 25. Okay, now you can't see it, but you can hear that clicking. We're at 25. Now we'll move to the bottom bolt and take him to 25 as well. Okay, there's 25. Now I'm going to reset my torque wrench to 55. And now we are at 55 foot-pounds on the torque wrench. Jump back up on there. Okay, right there's 55. Go to the next one down. Right there's 55. Now, I've got to get I got a Sharpie. Thing is, those bolt heads have oil over them, and a Sharpie's not going to work too well on that. So I may actually get a little scribe pen. And so I'm going to take and put a line here on the bolt pointing forward. And so you got to give it a quarter turn, which means it's going to be pointing straight up this way. If you give it a half turn, it's going to be all the way around pointing backwards toward the back of the tractor. You don't want that. So I'm going to get a scribe pen. That way I actually can scratch a little mark in that bolt head. Okay, well, I thought about trying to use a scribe pen. That's going to be easier said than done. So I just cleaned them bolt heads off good. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Now, I'm going to take, I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but I got those little marks. They're both pointing forward, and so now I want to take and turn those so that they go from pointing forward to pointing up like that. And that'll be a quarter turn, and that will be done. Well, according to the Reliant instruction page, I'm assuming those are probably like a stretch bolt. So you tighten them down, they like stretch in place. So however that works, it does the job. That's all I care. So I'm still going to use the torque wrench, and we'll just take and turn those until the line is pointing up. Now the torque wrench is going to keep clicking because it's still set at 55 foot-pounds. But just keep on pushing through that. And we're getting close, a little bit more. Get my creeper out of the way. Keep hitting into a step here on the side. Yeah, there we go. It's not going to take much more to be able to get it towards that quarter turn. All right, a smidge more, and that'll have it. However much a smidge is, maybe you can tell me in the comments. I think that right there is going to work. Now I'll hit the top one, and that'll have it. In fact, I may actually need to take and change sockets. I switched from a 6-point to a 12-point socket because the 6-point was too thick a walled, and it didn't want to seat on that bolt head the way I wanted. Okay, what do we got? Getting close. A little bit more, and that'll have it. One more, a little bit more of a turn. All right, the line is now pointing up. All right, guys, well, that's got piston number 1 all in, torqued, and good to go. So, I'm going to take off across here and get their 5 slapped in. I'm not going to show you that because you see number 1, their 5 are identical to that. So I'll bring you back in when I get their 5 all in and done and show you what it looks like. Alrighty, well, I'll show you right quick. I've got their 5 all put in. There they are up on top, number 6 over there. Give you a quick little look up underneath. They're all torqued down, and we are good to go. So the next step is installing the oil pump right up underneath there. You saw me take it out, so gotta get that put in. But that'll be for part 5. So I'm going to call this an end to part 4. And but hey, at least we got all 6 of the pistons and sleeves all in anyway, so we're good to go on that. Well, guys, take care. Thanks a lot for watching. We will see you in part 5.